What's up guys, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to show you how to replace the garbage disposal under your sink. And if that sounds intimidating to you, don't worry, I'm going to show you, actually we're going to show you that someone that's never done it before,
that's me,
can actually tackle the project. So let's get started. So I'm assuming if you found this video, you've already determined that your garbage disposal is garbage. I won't really go into troubleshooting, but I'll tell you this one is being replaced because it's leaking. It's pretty common for these to rust from the inside out and the seals fail and they just start leaking. So otherwise, if you've got maybe something stuck in there and the garbage disposal is grunting or making noise, it just won't turn, you can try breaking it free with this little wrench that you may have seen laying around in your kitchen and not know what it's for. But it's actually to turn the motor manually from underneath. And you're going to want to make sure you disconnect the power if you're going to do this. But otherwise, we're going to go ahead and show you how to replace one.
As far as tools go, you'll need a screwdriver, a pair of needle nose pliers, channel locks, and a hammer if you're going to knock out the plug for the dishwasher, which I'll show you later.
Alright, so some other things that you're going to need are plumber's putty if you plan on replacing the flange. So this flange came in the kit with the garbage disposal that I bought from the hardware store. You don't actually have to replace this if this fits your new garbage disposal, and we'll go into that in just a second. But if you're going to replace this, then you will need plumber's putty to do so. You also may need a grommet for the electrical connection. If you can't cannibalize the one off your old unit, or if the new kit doesn't come with one, you'll need one of those. You'll probably need some wire nuts. I like to replace the old ones anyway.
Go ahead and make some room underneath the sink, put some towels down, and disconnect the power. It's also a good idea to use a bucket underneath the garbage disposal to catch the water and any kind of trash that's going to come out of there. Start by removing the dishwasher drain line first.
Yep, and then that clamp will slide back. There you go. And just pull that. Yep, kind of twist and pull. There you go. And then put it in the bucket because it's going to drip a little bit of water. Perfect. So the next thing you'll want to do is go ahead and disconnect the drain line. And sometimes these are loose enough you can get them by hand. If not, you can use channel locks. Just break it free and then it should spin off by hand once you get it loose. There you go. So you want to go ahead and swing these pipes out of the way. If you loosen this connection on the bottom of the P-trap, well, it will free the rest of this up and you can actually swing it out of the way. You don't want to disconnect it all the way though, because there's water trapped in this line. So if you do, water's going to spill out. Now with the drain lines out of the way, we can reposition the bucket underneath the garbage disposal and get ready to take the actual garbage disposal out completely. Just so you understand how this flange actually works, so you can disconnect the old one, this part, the ring on the bottom, the motor part of the garbage disposal swivels, and this is fastened to the sink. This actually fits in these little notches here, and it spins on in that direction to the right. So as you tighten, you can see it kind of wedges itself in and it gets real tight. I'm not going to tighten it all the way, but just so you understand how this one works when you go to take it off. It should loosen just like that and then come straight out. So this ring can actually be pretty tight. If you can't get it by hand, use your pliers or something else as leverage to grab a hold of that flange and get it to loosen. Once it starts to move, it's usually a little easier. And again, don't try to catch the garbage disposal, just let it fall. Now we're going to remove the old flange, since in our case, we are going to replace this one. So I'm going to show you this on the new flange so you have an idea for what you're doing underneath the sink. These screws loosen, and that allows this part to move and gives you access to this snap ring right here, that little metal ring. So you can take a screwdriver or your pair of pliers, kind of get up under there and just pry that snap ring off. This is when you want to be wearing your safety glasses, because if this thing flies, it'll put your eye out, kid.
just come out?
Just work it around with the screwdriver to the other side. There you go. Now just push up on the existing flange.
No.
Use your putty knife and a paper towel to clean up the old plumber's putty. Alright, now you're going to disassemble the new flange, taking off the snap ring, the clamp underneath, the metal ring,
What's
and
this for?
that fiber, cardboard fiber washer or gasket goes under the sink, not between the sink and the flange.
Okay. Now, do I just put this in here?
Now you're going to want to take some of that plumber's putty and roll it into a Play-Doh snake like you did in kindergarten with Play-Doh. Okay, now you're going to set the flange in the hole and push it down nice and firm. You should feel the putty kind of squish in and feel like it's making a nice good seal. You may even have some, actually you should have some squirt out. That's not enough. So if you don't have enough plumber's putty, you're not going to get a good seal. You'll see kind of where it's hitting and where it's not hitting in the flange. So we want to add a little bit more than that. Just add more on top and mesh it all in together nicely.
Maybe. Okay, so let's try this again.
There you go. Yeah, you should see some squirt out around the edges. Now we need some weight to actually hold this flange in place while we go under the sink and put the rest of the flange together. If you don't have someone to help you, you can use the new garbage disposal since it's heavy enough to kind of hold the flange in place, but you want to protect from scratching the sink at the same time. Okay, so now we're ready to put the flange together underneath. If you have some excess putty kind of squirting out, you may want to move that out of the way to get a good seal with the gasket. The gasket's really not a seal, it's a secondary seal, but it's not going to protect from any leakage if the plumber's putty fails. Okay, so now we're ready to assemble the bottom half of the flange.
Okay, so what goes first?
So the fiber gasket goes first, the cardboard gasket.
This guy, how do I know which side goes up?
And it is shaped, so it kind of has a, back it up just a little bit. There you go. So it kind of has a concave to it and a lip on the bottom side here. And it's, if you can kind of see it in the camera, it's kind of concaved in one direction. So the rounded side goes up and the lip goes down.
Okay, there. What goes next?
So next is the mounting bracket, the triangle shaped mounting bracket. Yes, and it goes with the flat side up.
Okay.
There you go. Now the bracket with the screws on it, the mounting bracket itself.
Okay.
You're gonna line the screws up to the triangle shaped bracket. And then with all of that together, that's why you need the weight to hold the flange in place.
What if I do it like this?
You can do it like that. This is all the same.
Okay.
There you go. And then you need the snap ring.
Oh, goodness.
And another thing that will really help this assembly process is if you back these screws all the way out. It's going to give you all the space that you can get to get the snap ring up in there.
Got it! Woohoo!
So now you're going to go ahead and run the screws in on the mounting bracket. And a little bit of forward thinking here. If you position this bracket in a way, right now that one's actually hitting in the back right there where the, whoops, that screw came out, where the water supply is. But if you position this bracket in a way that makes it easier for you to get the new garbage disposal in place and turned, then it's just going to make the next step in the process a little bit easier for you. So just kind of consider what's around your sink when you start to tighten this down. When you're tightening these screws with the screwdriver, you want to do them evenly. You don't want to get them too tight. You should start to see the flange, the actual bracket, bend just a little bit right in here. You'll see a little bit of deflection in that bracket as it starts to get tight. And on the top side of the sink, you can now move the garbage disposal out of the way, and you'll see it get nice and tight and start to squeeze out some of that plumber's putty around the cracks there, around the edges. Okay, now we're ready to cannibalize the old garbage disposal. So we're gonna flip it upside down. There you go. And we're gonna take off this plate right here.
Do I need a screwdriver?
You will need a Phillips screwdriver for that. Okay, you're gonna pull those connections out. This is where it helps to have your needle nose pliers. And take the wire nuts off.
Are you sure they just spin off?
Yeah, they may be really tight because they actually twist the two wires together. So they may be pretty darn tight. There you go. Sometimes they grunt. But they come off, and that old one's trash. I always pitch the old wire nuts and put new ones on anyway.
So undo all of these?
Yeah.
Like you did that one?
You're just gonna pull it apart.
Just like that? Is that
Yep.
it?
You'll also need to disconnect the ground.
How does it come off?
So there's a screw right there.
So I need to undo.
You'll need to unscrew that screw. Yep. So now if you need to reuse the old wire grommet, you can remove it and swap it over to the new garbage disposal.
How I do it?
That is how you do it. Okay, so now we're ready to swap all these parts over to the new unit. We're just going to reverse the process. Okay, then you're going to feed those wires through. Use your needle nose pliers with the other hand to pull them through. Okay, now we can tighten the grommet. Now we'll make the ground connection. When making these connections, you want to twist these wires kind of together, and then you're always going clockwise around the screw so that as you tighten the screw, it actually pulls the wire into the screw head and not tries to push it out. If you go the other direction, when you tighten the screw down, it'll try to force the wire out from under the screw. So you just want to clean this up a little bit and get these wires nice and tightly woven together. Okay. And when you put the ground wire around the screw, you really gotta pack it in there tight. Use those needle nose pliers to squeeze it. That's good. Yeah.
Like that?
Yep, and then you'll have to hold this. You'll have to keep pressure on this as you tighten it down. And check and make sure that connection's not going to pull off. To make the power supply connections, you have a black and a white, which is hot for the black and white for the neutral. And quick disclaimer, I'm not an electrician, so if you don't feel comfortable doing this, definitely consult an electrician. If your wires aren't labeled and you don't know which is which, you can look closely. This one actually has a wire that has texture to it and one that doesn't. And if you go back to your plug, the one on the left has texture and the one on the right doesn't. This plug right here, the one on the left, is the neutral, and hot is on the right. If your house is wired correctly, that's how it should be, with the ground plug down. Ground is down, neutral's on the left, hot's on the right. It's just the opposite of your sink. Hot's on the left, cold's on the right.
Get twisted together.
Yes, those two get twisted together, and it's important to make sure that both the wires are the same length so that they thread into the wire nut together properly. So you want these two to kind of be on the same level when you twist them together. That's good. When you're tightening the wire nuts, you should feel the threads of the wire nut grab a hold of the wire and actually start to twist the entire wire itself together. So you'll keep going. That doesn't feel very good. Yeah. When you're making these connections, you want to make sure you tighten the wire nut enough that it twists the wire together, but not so much that it actually pulls the internals out of the wire nut. Every wire nut has a little ring inside of it, and that's what that ring looks like. So these wire nuts are not very good. Just give them like one turn. That's good.
Like that?
Now put the, not the yellow ones yet, now put that one on there. Okay, check and make sure you have really good connections. You should be able to pull the wire nut against both wires individually, and it should not come out. And put the plate back on and the screw. Okay, now's a really good opportunity to look at that key that actually turns the motor on the garbage disposal. That's what it looks like from underneath. One more thing before we put this back together. If you can see down in there, there is a plug right here. That plug keeps water from leaking out of the unit if you don't have a dishwasher. If you do have a dishwasher like we do in ours, then you'll need to take the hammer and the screwdriver and knock that plug out, and then you're going to want to fish that piece out from the inside because it won't go down the garbage disposal. It'll just rattle around and make noise. And there it is. You want to fish that out. And again, if you do not have a dishwasher drain that hooks up to this connection on your old one, if it hooks up somewhere else or you don't have a dishwasher at all, do not do this step.
We're ready to go ahead and install the garbage disposal. And if you kept the original box and you have like a spare block of wood laying around, it usually winds up being about the right height to prop the garbage disposal up on and help you align the bracket without having to hold the whole weight of the thing.
This part's a little tricky because the garbage disposal is awkward and heavy, and you have to pick the garbage disposal up and tighten the ring around the flange all at the same time. You also want to make sure that it is facing the correct direction when you do this, so you need to spin the garbage disposal back to the original position so it'll line up with the plumbing. It's a good idea to kind of swing the new plumbing in place and make sure it's going to be close. You want to tighten the flange all the way until it locks. You can use either your pliers or the supplied key to do that. Perfect. Okay, so now we'll remove the old pipes, or at least just this old tube, by loosening this piece and pulling the old downspout out.
Gross!
Now we're going to put the new side flange on, and the rubber gasket goes into the disposal first, and then you'll slide the mounting bracket onto the side flange, and insert the side flange into the old pipe. You may have to remove the old connection and slide that onto the side flange with the threads down. Remove the old compression ring, and that goes onto the side flange with the point down so that it fits down inside the new pipe, and you'll just spin the ring on but don't tighten it all the way. Now line up the side flange and install the screws. Okay, now we can go back and tighten the rest of the connections, and you want to make sure that this is free and it's not bound up in any way. Alright, and grab the wrench and give them just like a quarter turn with the wrench. There you go.
Is that too far?
No, that's what you want. There you go. That's good. Plenty. Okay, now make the dishwasher connection. Now reinstall the plug, and you're ready to check for leaks. Use the putty knife to kind of clean up the excess plumber's putty on the top side of the sink. When you're sure you don't have any leaks, I always plug the sink, fill it with a couple gallons of water, and then run the garbage disposal to really put a test on the lines and make sure it's not going to leak. Yep, turn it on.
Woohoo! I did it!
You did it. Well, there you have it, guys. Another project down. Make sure if this video helped you handle a project at your house, hit that like, subscribe button, share this video with someone else that needs help, and make sure you check out our website for a list of top 10 things that every homeowner needs.
Do we get to play with power tools next?
Maybe.
Yes!
It says right there on it, self-servicing wrench. And it's for, so I'm
Sorry.
not gonna go into,
Sorry.
you can't do this to me.
You're assuming your garbage disposal is garbage.
You've already determined that your garbage disposal is garbage.